Alrighty everybody, welcome back to the channel. It has been quite a journey doing this clan hunt. Let me tell you, it was crazy. So much work. So much time went into it. I probably was doing 12 to 14 hours a day each day. Especially during the first days, probably 10 to 12 hours of like all of that time was spent doing testing different comps, different positions, with multi teams, 3 different attacks, multiple different teams, multiple different bosses. There was so much to test on this one. It was a lot of fun, but I don't want to be doing this twice a month. Once a month, I'd be okay with that. Twice a month, ooh. That's too much. It was a lot of effort, a lot of work. We did pretty good with our attacks here. I think we just had one person who consistently every day did not attack, except for that first day. We had 2 people miss. And so, yeah, it was shout out to all my guild members. It was a very high level coordinated, well, maybe not the first 2 days, but very fun, stressful event. Wanted to talk to you a little bit about some of the strategies and the guides that have been made in the course of this testing, this long period of time in which we had been doing some testing. So I'll go through some of the clan records here later, but for now I'm just going to swap over to the guidebook, and then we'll just be able to showcase the guidebook. This was a guidebook made specifically for this, just because it was very competitive trying to stay in the top. A lot went on in it. So as I swap over to here, you can see, so this is my first tab. This is the rotation vids tab. So this basically shows what the stages and which teams are available for that as far as optimal teams. You could use whatever teams you want really, but these are what we found to be the most optimal. Doing a quick mathematical optimal rotation with 2 people doing your 6 attacks or 3 attacks each. And basically one person, player A, is attacking DOT on stage 1, player A is doing Timeless Aeona on stage 3, and then on stage 5 they're just using whatever the third team is. The goal is to be able to try to hit 30 to 35 million with each player on this one, while player B is doing a Timeless Aeona on stage 2 and a DOT team on stage 4. This is because these 2 teams are able to one-shot these particular stages, and then you just double up and team up on the 5th stage. In other words, that's a total of 6 attacks, and you're doing 301 million damage off of these 5 stages that you're doing here. And this is the quickest rotation. This is the most optimal mathematical rotation with just 2 people. With 1 person, I have a separate tab for that if you aren't that coordinated. For us, we had in our guild, there was like 15 different time zones that we were trying to coordinate with. It was very difficult to get attacks, and so we weren't able to be optimal, but I'm satisfied with our current ranking. So this is the videos tab, and this is the optimal rotations tab. So this is the tab that I made if you were just doing individual attacks. If you are just an individual attacker, what is the most optimal stages to attack? And again, those are going to be stages 1 through 4, and then stage 5. Anytime there's a stage 5 in it, it just tanks your score just because it's not able to be one shot. Then some of the other interesting things was learning the damage rotations. So I'll just showcase as an example what this looks like. So this would be if you were one person was to attack stages 1, 2, and 3. So here's stages 1, 2, and 3. This is the team that you're going to be using. This is the expected damage outcome values that you could potentially be getting. Then your total damage. I did color code everything on here. If we scroll through the top, you could kind of see green is the best. Then we have yellow is the next best one, and then we have some orange is like okay, orange is okay, and then we also have red. Red is like okay, that's not the best. So the best ones for individual attacks was going to be doing stages 1, 2, and 4, and then 1, 3, and 4. Basically all of the one-shottable stages. So we'll continue down here. So these are the 5 characters that you need in them in order to do expected damage output, the artifacts that you need, the starting ult order, and then down below is the damage rotation on them. A lot of them were very similar damage rotations where you just repeat it. So sometimes I'll say on like this one, wait till 9, then you do this to start off, and then you just repeat this until the very end type of a thing. And so it's fairly straightforward on them. Lots of different information on here. I think there's only one comp that I'm not 100% sure on, which is doing a DOT on stage 5. It's actually the only one that I don't have a video for. Probably record one after this to have one. It's not going to be optimal. It's super RNG reliant. That it'll explain every single one of the single comps for this, and then then I'll have to add in 11 rows beneath so you can see this other one. So here is the next row of values here. So this is basically more yellow attempts here, then we have 2 more oranges, and then we have our second red. So you'll be able to see them, they're all here. You can check it out for yourself there. Then we have the individual teams tabs. So this is basically for stage 1 using a Timeless Iona team, as it's a Timeless Iona tab. This is the team and the format that you have, and then you just follow along the rotation or whatever. That way you have the visual guide on it in case the video guide isn't enough. You could just rely everything here. So I have 1, 2, 3, so I'm missing a screenshot here. I need to add that. Then I have whatever the stage 5 on here. So it's the same thing. I have one for the T Haiti teams. I have one for the Van teams. On this one in particular, I have a second alternative. There is one instance in this maximize damage output tab in which one of the teams, as an example, if you aren't doing stage 5, you could use summon characters on it and actually increase your score by 5 to 10 million. While if you just were to do a standard, you have a lower range on them. So we have Van teams, we have summoner teams. What is not on here, all of my other teams that I did for testing. I'm not sure if I'll do a compilation for that just because there were so many different teams tested that it'd be a lot of work just to put that into a compilation, so I'll think about it. And then we have this tab right here. So I've named this one the ignore tab. It's not as important. This is what I was using for calculation and tracking certain values and such. For rounds 11 to 15, this was when we were still first testing some of the comps, because up until round 10, pretty much any team could one-shot any stage as long as you were somewhat competent. This was when it really started skyrocketing. We're like, oh, okay, we actually have to think about it a little bit more. You could see the legend right here. So basically green it was an easy clear, plenty of time remaining. That was anywhere from like 15 to like a minute and a half left type of a thing. Yellow was easy clear, but you were running short of time. That's generally like less than 15 seconds on the clock when you were doing a stage clear. Then I just broke it down to numbers values. So orange was like, okay, you could do roughly 75 to 99% of the stage using this team. Red 55 to 75, purple 26 to 50, pink 16 to 25%, and then gray was 15% or less. So these were the main teams tested. I tried different other comps and they just weren't able to do the damage outputs just because this clan hunt was primarily an AoE stage unless you were able to do grouping mechanics. And so there's just some things that you couldn't group or some things that you were unable to group or had weird grouping on them. We have around 16 plus stages. So this is when you're actually like, okay, I actually needed to bring a healer, I actually needed to bring a tank, or I needed to care more about the stage mechanics. I couldn't brute force my way through them. And doing so, that completely knocked off the Lamia team. It greatly downsized the Lemonade team, and it really knocked down the summons team. So you could do like summons with, if you had Chrono 5, summons and a lot of other characters, if you had nobody else, was able to boost your damage output just as well as like an acapella, because they were able to have about the same amount of blood cell recovery, but they were able to add a little bit more damage than just an Aka could on her own. So it's kind of interesting to see that. A lot of my clan members were like, oh, okay, it's interesting to see different team comps starting to pop up or these types of modes using Chrono 5. So I think for me, I focused Chrono 5 first before EOT because I saw the value in it, at least on paper, and so that's what I had focused on. It was just very interesting seeing it. So now we have this section. It's just, again, most of this is unlabeled or just my notes and stuff like this. So this was what was the ideal stages for one-shot comps, or what could one-shot. So Timeless Iona was able to one-shot 2 or 3, and that was the ideal stages to one-shot. For DOT teams, the ideal stages to one-shot were 1 and 4. Then everything else is basically italicized. That's because these are not able to one-shot teams. So in round 16, only Timeless Iona and DOT teams were able to one-shot. No other team was able to do so. However, if you had a super juiced up Summoners team and got perfect RNG, then and only then could a Summoner team do a one-shot on stage 5. But you needed to have crazy juiced up characters in order for that to happen. Not really feasible. Most people haven't really focused on summoners like that. Then Van was best on stages 1 and 4, Summoners was best on stage 5, and then Lemonade was best on stage 5. So those were my teams that I did for whatever for testing. I'll add a couple more rows so you guys could see here in the spreadsheet. Then I did just like a quick, okay, what would the bases of certain teams look like? That's gonna be these right here. So these are gonna be the example core teams. So a Timeless Iona team is gonna be a TA, Amy, and Akka, then just a 3-cost. DOT team is gonna be a T Haiti, a Darcius, and then it's like a T Amy on some stages. It was like a Doll, Agaris, and Agnes. It just depended on the stages. Van Helsing was a Van, Fleeting Bella, and Agnes, or an Akka. Again, it just depended on the stages. Summon team was just straight summons. Eliminate team was just basically I tried different comps. This is what I was using. Most of this is what I was using for rounds 11 to 15. So Eliminate team was something like this. Lamia team was something like this. It just was not optimal. Here is when I was testing. I tried like a whole bunch of different comps. I'm like, all right, this is just optimal by far compared to every other comp. I was like, okay, we don't have to worry about that. Over here, we have the preferred stages. I did have alternatives on them because in some stages there were good alternatives, but it wasn't optimal. And so same thing on like my maximize damage tab that I have here in the guidebook is I just removed those from that value of whatever that value fields because it's like, why would I want to include a non-optimal route when you have so many other routes that you can do for players? So at least the other routes are a little bit more optimal, even if they aren't the best type of a route. These were basically the testing teams that I did to maximize the characters, and so there were no duplicates between teams. But like, okay, if I was to do like stage 1 Timeless Iona, stage 2 Van, and then like a stage 3 summon, what would be the characters, and then so on and so forth. So 11 to 15 is a little bit more optimized as far as you could use pretty much whatever characters for the 4th and 5th slots, just because it is an easier hit for them because you didn't need as much damage rather for rounds 16 plus, and you didn't need as much survivability. And then we have the values on here, so you could see with this team you could roughly do 50 to 65 million. So the 65 or the upper values is the people who have invested into the characters in this team. They're able to hit those values as long as they follow the damage and the video rotations that I have published and released there in the guidebook as well. While the lower end value is mostly if you do not have echo gear on those characters, like the main damage characters, then this is going to be more of the expected values for your run. Basically, it's like the high BP teams versus the low BP teams. So Timeless Iona, able to one-shot every single stage. The level of investment on them does matter. For Timeless Iona, stage 2, 3, and 5, you did not need a Fleeting Bella, but for stages 1 and 4, you did. That's why I said earlier, well, Timeless Iona is a little bit better for stages 2 and 3, just because you could free up having to use an Akka and a Fleeting Bella on those two teams, and that allows you to maximize your damage output for other stages because you have more buffers available. So this was something that I saw a lot of clan members and a lot of other people when they were talking about it. They're like, sweet, we're just going to go with the standard Timeless Iona team, which is Timeless Iona, Fleeting Bella, Akka, and then whatever, like a tank, and then whatever. Like, I saw a lot of hits like that during the first couple of days, and everywhere I was in, every server, everybody was like, oh, we're just going to do this and easy. And then they're like, oh, now my other two teams are hitting like wet noodles. And so this is how we were able to gain a lot of ranks starting from after we hit round 16, was because we were optimizing our hits this way. We weren't putting 3 or 4 buffers with a Timeless Iona, and then now our other teams don't have any buffers because the buffers or the support characters are in short supply right now. It's difficult to find these good half-moon spots. Alright, Timeless Iona team. Then we have the Van team. In rounds 11 to 15, I didn't have it on this one, on a different spreadsheet. I had the damages for them, just because Van was able to one-shot in 11 to 15 a lot of the stages. In 16 plus, he struggled so hard. When I was first testing, everything was looking like this one right here. It was like 10 to 15, like 15 to 20, like 15 to 20, 15 to 20. This was like 15 to 25 or something like that. Like, you could hardly do any damage with the Van team. So then it was like, all right, let's really crank it down and see what we could do for optimizing rotations, And so we were able to do some cool things. I was like, oh, Agnes is actually better than Serene in most of these stages. You could interchange that, and that'll free up Serene for other stages type of a thing. Oh, whatever Rissa is good in some of these stages for a better rotation rather than another damage dealer or buffer. And then like T. Amy was good on stages 3 and 4 because despite them being immune to CC, you could still move them around, but for whatever reason, T. Amy could move them, but like Agnes wasn't able to move them or something like that. It's like some weird mechanics going on. Each of the stages were not consistent with what they had in their mechanics, basically. Stages 5, this was just a very tough one overall. You needed to have really beefed up summoners, or you just needed to get super lucky with the RNG. And so for us, stages 3 and 5 were the stages in which we were getting held up the most on, and so it was just very difficult to clear those 2 stages. We have our DOT team, so T-Haiti teams basically were able to one-shot 1 and 4 very consistently. Then for stage 5, very RNG reliant, but I was actually able to do some 35 to 45 million hits. It's just, again, super RNG on the cards rather than anything else. Then stages 2 and 3 just hit like a wet noodle, couldn't do anything whatsoever. And then I tested our summon teams. So summon team, initially I was struggling. I was only able to do like 15 to 20 on these teams. I was like, man, I must be doing something wrong. Like, these guys just suck. And so for the longest time, I think 2 or 3 days, I was just using Eliminate team because that was by far the easiest, most brainless. I just literally put summoners in a team, and then I just spammed Eliminate ult the entire time, and then I used T-No ult at the very end, and that was it. I was like, all right, easy 35 million damage every time. I didn't have to worry about it. It's like, all right, that's at least the halfway threshold, more than the halfway threshold for a lot of people. So as long as they could do a 30 million hit, then we were good. It wasn't until I started testing really in depth in the last 2 days for this summoner team that I was like, okay, there actually is an optimal rotation for this in order to hit some of those benchmarks. I was like, all right, sweet. And then the Lamia team, just, they could not kill anything. Like, they did no damage. I couldn't get a good damage rotation with the characters left. Her bounce attack was not good enough. Like, I tried like other characters. Like, I just could not find another good working team. So if you guys did find another working team outside of these main 3 teams and then 2 sub teams, let me know, because I'm very interested to see what other teams there were. Now we'll switch back over to here, and then we'll go ahead and enter just some of these so I could talk about some of the mechanics on them, just because in the videos that I posted, I talked about them a little bit, but I didn't go in depth on them and how they worked and whatnot type of a thing. In this one, stage 1, enemy units gains 1 stack of Hunter's Mark upon taking basic attack damage. When Hunter's Mark reaches 20 stacks, they deal physical damage based on the basic attack of the ally with the highest attack to all enemies around the marked unit, and removes all stacks. When the battle begins, all enemies permanently gain magic defense takedown, major, crit resist up, crit damage mitigation up, and all damage reduction. This meant that magic damage teams struggled on this one, yet we were able to come in with like a T-Haiti that is able to, whatever, with her physical damage, and still able to plow through and do this one. On this one, they are not immune to CC, so we were able to use characters like T-Amy, we were able to use characters like Agnes to group up the enemies and be able to burst them down using physical damage dealers. Timeless Iona was strong enough to be able to ignore the mechanics on it, so like, alright, sweet, of course. So that's pretty much it for the mechanics on this one. So it's like, okay, they are all ranged units, so it doesn't matter how you group them. There's also another type of rotation in which we were able to successfully test, but we weren't able to replicate easily, and that is if you're grouping them with, say, an Agnes or something like that, if there is a character joins the middle after they are grouped, say you jump in with like a Theophane, or the other condition was if there was 2 melee characters on either side of wherever they are grouped in, these characters will not ungroup. They will stay inside of that little area for the rest of the time, and that was really, really good for a Van team. The issue with that is that it really decreased the damage output, despite Van outputting more damage, just because the rotation was different and it was not as optimal as far as maximizing damage. Because despite Van having, let's say, whatever, he has a range of like 30 to 40 hits or something like that, grouping everybody together is increasing his number of hits to 40, but the damage rotation or the damage output has dropped from a 40 to a 30. So the damage output was superseding the number of basically attacks that he was getting, or the theoretical damage, if that makes sense. And I don't have any videos to showcase this, unfortunately. There are some in my clan server. Maybe I'll hunt some of them down. I was super busy testing everything. So that was some very interesting mechanics on this stage that we discovered. Cold Pyre, this one was very annoying. In the first 3 days, this was one of our stop points, and then starting in days, whatever, the 4th and 5th day, then it was the 3rd and 5th one that was our stopping point. So this one was different because it was the only one that had a 4-minute timer here. So it meant you're like, oh, it's more time to do damage. Other teams should do well in it, and you would think that would be the case, but it was not the case. It was somewhat RNG reliant. It didn't have like it was a beneficial one. When a unit is eliminated, ally units have a 20% chance to gain 1 blood soul. Enemy units gain crit damage mitigation. As far as I'm aware, only the 1 unit summoned every 30 seconds or so on either side was able to trigger this unit elimination. Else maybe I just wasn't paying attention to it, or else I just never hit the values. So on this one, every 10 seconds before the first minute, so at 4:10, 3:10, 2:10, and 10 seconds left, he will do a summon where he summons these pike spirits onto the battlefield and targets the vassal with the lowest HP. And so it's during that phase is when he is continuously launching spear attacks, which does strong magic damage. So during that time, that is when he's able to kill your teammates the fastest. So if you aren't able to kill these 6 enemies that are being summoned, that it made it very difficult to do any damage whatsoever. They were super tanky. I don't remember what their health was, but off the top of my head, but they were very, very tanky. So Van, with Fleeting Bella and Akka going, Blood Moon going, it took him a hot minute to go through all of the enemies if you haven't grouped them together with like an Agnes, if he's just taking them out one by one. The upside to Van on this stage was he was able to have a higher uptime on his ultimate, but the downside to that was it was messing up the rotations with the Fleeting Bella, so it was making the rotations for it actually suboptimal on this team. Yeah, that was a very, very interesting one. During that summon phase, he cannot be targeted and gains invincibility, so characters like a Timeless Aeona is unable to damage him either until all of these other 6 pike spirits are defeated. Whenever he continues to attack the target that Baphomet has selected, it'll force him to exit the Dominion state, and then he's able to be attacked and he doesn't do his normal damage, the rest of his other skills during that time. Unlike in other phases, like in like a Sheila or something like that, he isn't taking additional damage when he is downed, or when he's in the recovery phase after this Soul Dominion March of the Damned special ultimate. That was kind of interesting to see. For his special, he enters the charging state, unleashes a powerful slash, deals magic damage to all enemies in a rectangle. It's a melee ranged attack, so it only affects like the first row or 2. It doesn't affect people in the back row, so that was able to, if you just had 1 tank, it was good. If you had like a tank and a melee unit, it was difficult to keep them alive while trying to maintain a strong uptime for the damage rotation. In Black Steel Cleave, weak magic damage to the targets, whoever he is targeted. You have your Spectral Conflagration, when his summons are eliminated, whatever, you have the chance to gain whatever this damage buff for 20 seconds. All damage dealt plus 10%. I'm 95% certain that this does stack with a Fleeting Bella. I just didn't use Fleeting Bella on this stage enough in order to, I just don't remember off the top of my head. He's immune to control effects as well as attack speed down, damage up effects. Periodically summons a Spirit Shield or a Shield Spirit or a Blade Spirit to assist in the battle. Again, the Blade Spirits were able to more damage than the Shield Spirits, but then the Shield Spirits were just super tanky. So the Shield Spirits you couldn't one-shot with characters like a Ressa or like a T-Hades and stuff like that. It was difficult to one-shot them, while the Blade Spirits were easier to damage down and burst. Yeah, the rotation on it was kind of strange because for me it would last anywhere from whatever 10 seconds for his special, his ultimate, anywhere to like 35 seconds or something like that. So if you add that up over whatever the 3 phases, and then you have 10 seconds to the very end, that could be anywhere from 40 seconds to almost 2 minutes minutes of this 4 minutes in which he's invincible and you can't do any damage to him. You're like, alright, that's why it has so much time here. It's just very different mechanics and so much downtime because the enemies were so tanky. It's like, oh, we just didn't have any way to burst through them other than a Tiaona team. This is why I say Tiaona team, this was one of her better stages because she was a character that was able to burst through that. So this was one of the stages. The second stage was able to do a lot of damage. This one, they don't do a whole lot of damage, but they still do a little bit of damage. Ranged enemy units switch between scatter shot and aim shot every 15 seconds. That timing is important every 15 seconds because you could do certain mechanics based off of when they are doing their rotations on there. So basically you were either changing who is the closest enemy or you were pushing or taunting during right before that time, or the two mechanics to help control who is receiving the damage, or if you just have a single melee unit. They are immune to control effects, so you can't CC them, you can't whatever anything, but you could on this one do a T-Amy and able to push them and move them around, which I thought was odd because you can't do that on the 5th stage, but you can on the 3rd and 4th stages. So for this one, the strategy typically was to do Transcendent Amy, and you just push them and group them. So Van is targeting this middle one, and the middle one is pushed into the middle, and then it splashes to the enemies on the other side. The first couple of days we were doing this, we were doing 2 pushes. We were pushing Amy up into the corner, and then we were pushing down, just because Van's best spot is typically this top left corner for whatever reason. He always has a way higher damage output than anywhere else he is positioned in the field. So we were running him in the top left corner, but like, oh, we could actually push this enemy up into the group with just one Transcendent Amy rotation, and that saves us from having to do a second rotation with her. We were able to greatly increase our damage output just by pushing this and just focusing on Van or whomever else is on this stage the rest of the time. Very, very fun. So every 15 seconds, healing to allied units is reduced by 50%. So then here's the 2 effects. Aim shot basic attack deals multiple instances of magic damage to the ally closest to the enemy. Scatter shot, each basic attack deals magic damage to all enemies. So it's kind of interesting, it's magic damage on both. So if you're using magic damage characters, it is a little bit easier to stay alive. But again, they aren't doing a whole lot of damage on this one, as long as you had some sort of healer on it. Or rather, it wasn't as much damage as the 2nd and 4th stages could potentially be. The way that they choose the aim shot, multiple instances to the ally closest to the enemy, it's basically 3 ticks per enemy, so 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3, so 9 ticks total. And then the target enemy will have a little whatever, like aiming reticule on the character that is getting targeted. And so every 15 seconds you could see, and you could move whatever, you could teleport, you could change, there's lots of ways you could influence who is getting targeted from that. So Stone Golem, same exact effect as in stage 3. The difference is in stage 3 they were all primarily ranged, I believe, if I'm remembering correctly, while in this one the first group is melee and the second group is ranged. So that made it kind of wonky because you could manipulate things. If your DOT team was strong enough, you could do some damage on just this first group, but it was better to try to get like as many characters as you can when trying to burst damage with like a DOT. With the TA, it didn't really matter quite as much, but for her attacks, it's only hitting a certain amount of enemies. It's basically attack 4 additional strikes, so 5 enemies total, so 1 2 3 4 5. And so it would rotate and do like 1 2 3 1 2 1 2 3 1 2 1 2 3 1 2 type of a thing. It was kind of weird watching the damage rotate through these 8 enemies. But for this one, it was difficult because these back enemies 9,800 attack, and then these frontline enemies, despite it having 9,800 attack, this is physical damage 100%, and this one it was not, it doesn't have a value on it. But I'll let you guys know that these ranged units way stronger than these melee units as far as dealing damage. It's supposed to be the same, but it was not. So you were doing things like you were using her to do this all damage down minor effect on these units, but for me, I like sometimes I just, until I was getting my rotation into the backline, I was actually casting it on this sometimes, just because these were killing my units more than the melee guys were. And then there you kind of see in the video how I was rotating around, grouping on it, super annoying. This was usually like 10 to 15 minutes on this stage to just get the RNG, while the summon one was anywhere from like 15 to 20 minutes, where I could do like 20 runs in a row where I get 80% of the the sun cards. And so yeah, that was a very interesting one. That's pretty much it. The mechanics for this one, grouped them together. Talk about the fifth one. This was the most unique out of all of them, and also I think one of the most difficult for doing damage output on them. So every 5 allied summons grants 1 luminescent and 1 solar flare free of cost. In our clan we were just calling them moon and sun cards, or sun and moon. Enemy units are immune to control effects and gain certain all damage reduction, which means that they take less damage than normal, same as in stage 1. Then you have the 2 cards here. So luminescence deals high magic damage to all enemies, and this is the important part. Damage is based on the basic attack of the ally with the highest attack and the number of allied summons on the field. So the number of summons on the field greatly increased the damage output, more so than if you have like a character with a high attack damage. If you look at the guidebook and you look through the characters, like what 14,000 attack, 15,600, like my Bella actually, when I was doing summon teams, actually had my highest attack. So as long as you have one character with a high level attack, whoever is your highest level attack, you could throw that highest level attack character into a summon team and get a pretty good damage output on there just based off of that high attack damage character. So you're like, okay, whoever is your most invested, your highest attack character, that is just a strategy you could do. Not optimal, but because of the high attack, you're scaling your moon cards a little bit more. So the moon cards were very interesting. If you were running like a Bella, a T-Noah, and then at least one other summoner, whether that was a Piera or a Clive Jr., you were able to do anywhere from 300 million to 840 million hits on them. So that is a lot of damage on there. In a full summon team, you're able to get roughly 17 or 18 cards. If you're just running 3 with, this is with Chrono, then usually you hit about 15 cards. So if it's a 50% chance at 15 cards, you're roughly going to get 7 sun cards, 7 moon cards on average. So there's some where you'll get, you'll get, 15 moon cards, and there's some runs where you'll get 15 sun cards on average. And so that's where the RNG on this was. You were gambling to try to hit that 50% or the moon cards 15 times in a row. And it was very, very annoying. I'm not sure which was more annoying, because with the grouping using a DOT team on stage 4, you could usually group the first one really easily. It was trying to get the grouping on the second one. That was the difficult part, because there was some issues in timing on it. Maybe I'll go back and talk a little bit more about there is some timing specifics I could talk about. So for this one, the maximum number of summons that you could get, and then if you cast your moon cards at those instances, will greatly do the damage output. So it's anywhere from 1.5 to 3.5 bars per moon card. So that's anywhere for the low end of that spectrum. That's anywhere from like 11 to like 16%. If you're doing the absolute maximum high end of the spectrum, that's anywhere from 22 to 30% of the damage just from moon cards alone. So regardless of what your team is doing, because of their damage reduction, it's basically, if I'm doing 300, whatever this number is, if I'm doing 30 million damage between, let's say, these two characters, my T-Haiti and Doll, in actuality that 30 million damage is going to be turned into 15 million damage on the back end, or the stats end, due to the damage reduction. It's kind of the same on the first one. And so it was very interesting on this one, trying to get the RNG on it. So I was like, okay, that was just a pain to do. And so the other interesting thing on it was that it was, you couldn't move the enemies around in the 5th stage. In the 3rd and the 4th stage, you could push people with the T-Amy, and then on this one, you could not do that for whatever reason. We're like, what? Like, what's up with that? Yeah, and then I'll talk a little bit about so for me, when I was trying to get the rotation on this, there was several conditions that needed to be met. One was that my T-Haiti needed to be on the bottom of the group, because then she would be at the bottom of the group on the second one. This was after TP with a C. The second condition that needed to get set up was that T-Haiti needed to be the target, because she was the one who was getting shielded by my Starry-Eyed, and so she was the one who was gaining the special from Starry-Eyed and is able to stay alive a little bit longer. She also had fairly decent magic defense compared to some of my other characters who weren't as investing, so she was able to stay alive a little bit longer. The other condition that needed to be done was that Starry-Eyed Aeona needed to be on the top of this melee group after the first teleport. So those were the two easier conditions to hit. There was, if I set it up like this and I teleported them, they would hit at the same spot. Basically, if I aimed at the same spot every time, it was like 80% likely to get the perfect RNG that I needed, where Starry-Eyed was on the top and my T-Haiti was on the bottom. If any other character got hit on the bottom, it was likely that they would get killed by these ranged units during the aim shot phase. So that was the first thing. So if you got that, you're like, all right, great. If I didn't get it, I would just restart. Now the second rotation was the more difficult because now you're a little bit in. You're like, oh, okay, now I need to work on another rotation here. So that was TPing further into the back line, and then basically whatever this character, so despite being right here, your characters will only target one of these two enemies. So keep that in mind. So that's why on my videos I would have grouped everybody here, that way it's at least facing here. Or I saw variants as well on this one where the entire team was basically based up here and across, like here and here. It doesn't really matter, just because wherever they are is going to be targeting one of these two enemies. So whoever is your target, that's who you need to be keeping mind of. On the phone, this was a lot more difficult than on the PC because it's actually bigger screen, and so you could actually see the enemies. So basically what you're doing, they are attacking once every 4 seconds, same as your characters. So basically after they attack, that's when you start your count. 1, 2, 3. After 3 seconds, then that's when you're going to teleport away, because they're going to immediately go, or rather on that 4th second, they're going to try to follow you and basic attack you, because they're now trying to do a basic attack. If you teleport right after they've done a basic attack, or while they're basic attacking, it's going to be 3 to 4 seconds before they start moving towards you, and that's going to mean your team is going to be heading back towards them. And so that's where the RNG of this is coming from, is if you're on the phone, good luck seeing it. And so that was kind of the strategy on that, was you wait until they had done their attack, wait the 3.5 seconds, and then you teleport, and then they're going to immediately move, and then it'll group up back here. If once they are grouped up back here, if you are having trouble surviving, or if your T-Haiti is not the target, or even your Starry-Eyed could even tank fairly well. If one of those two is not the target, then you might need to cut your damage rotation early and just teleport Timeless Aeon to reset it. The goal was to try to hit at least 5 of them in a group. You could hit 6 or you could hit 7. That's even better. It was very, very, very difficult for me to be able to get all 8. Just because these characters don't move using any type of rotation. So either I'd place them like right here, and my T-Haiti would either be like right here or right here, and the rest of the people would be grouped around it, or I would be like slightly offset to one side, like right here or right here, where all of the enemies are grouped up in between, basically. So you're using this as like a little block spacer, because these enemies don't move, the melee ones move, and so you're kind of trying to force them within this gap, and then you're just trying to burst as many as possible within these zones right here. So hopefully that helps explain it. We'll see if they are going to reuse this clan hunt for the next one. If they do, all my strategy and guides are going to be out, and it's going to be whoever has the better rotations for teams within the clan. So that's going to be it. This got kind of long, so we'll look forward to seeing you all in the next video.